Good morning. This is Kenneth and Heather with the Advancing Equity Coalition, here with part 3 of our series to talk about how do we protect teachers of color in Minneapolis public schools from layoffs and excessing. If you haven't caught our first 2 videos, make sure you go check them out, where we talk a little bit about why teachers of color are so vulnerable and why is this issue so urgent right now. But with that, Heather, do you want to talk a little bit around our proposals that have gone back and forth, and really what are the areas that Minneapolis Public Schools and the Minneapolis Federation of Teachers really agree on?
What we know is that both when the union first brought this proposal forward in March of 2021, both sides quickly and readily agreed that protecting teachers of color and increasing the number of teachers of color in our district was a priority for each of them. The second thing that they really quickly agreed upon is that the seniority, the system by which we lay off or excess teachers, negatively impacts most teachers of color in our district. So that was the hurdle that we had to get around. Those two things, both sides were like, "Yep, that's true." Then what, Kenneth?
Yeah. So, when it becomes a position of like this is a priority for both of us and we agree on what the problem is, now it's about like what is the solution that works for both of us. And so we know that there were a couple of things that they are now disagreeing around in terms of what type of solution we can create. The first issue that they're disagreeing about, or they initially disagreed about, was whether or not they could directly say protecting teachers of color in their contract. We know that according to federal law that you cannot make hiring, firing, and layoff decisions based on race, right? And so that's a big hurdle that they had to jump. And so what they're trying to do now is to figure out what are some alternative categories that really targets teachers of color that but isn't solely based on race. And so the argument right now is around how broad should those categories be, how targeted can they be, and just like what is the right fit. The last kind of major issue that they are still disagreeing on is the scope of these protections. And so like how far do these protections actually extend? So the first part of that is, do these protections extend to teachers of color only in a certain set of schools or all of our schools in Minneapolis public schools? The second issue that they're also, trying to figure out is, should these protections only exist for layoffs or should these protections exist for accessing? And so we're all familiar with layoffs, and layoffs is the process in which a teacher is reduced from the entire district and no longer works for Minneapolis public schools. Where accessing is the process of a teacher actually just leaving their specific building. And so if you have a teacher of color that is teaching currently at, let's say, Bancroft, which is my neighborhood school, and this teacher needs to be reduced from Bancroft specifically, but is still an employee of Minneapolis public schools, that's accessing. And so they're trying to figure out, should these protections exist for both layoffs and accessing? And so if you were interested in hearing a little bit more around some of the solutions we think are possible and what should be a part of this package, check out our next video where we'll be talking a little bit about some solutions that have been created around us and solutions that we think should work for Minneapolis public schools. Thanks for listening and have a great rest of your day.
Bye.